terrible that you've got Iranian protesters that are respecting our flag and respecting the United States and Israel tonight more so than the Democratic Party of this country. And I watched Nancy Pelosi in the clips. I can't watch this lady, but I watched the clips today of these interviews that she gave over the weekend. It's painful to watch this lady literally try to defend Iranian terrorism, Iranian mullahs, blame the president for everything under the sun. And I know it's about this impeachment, but it is sickening to me that you've got a political party in this country, Mark, that, again, they cannot bring themselves to support the protesters, but they can sure bring themselves to support a terrorist regime who granted, I think has gotten the message, because there's all indications tonight. There was a report on Breitbart. There was also one on Gateway Pundit and my buddy Mike Moore at True Pundit. Same stories. They all confirmed each other. There were 3 Iranian diplomats that sent messages to President Trump in the back channels about 48 hours after the bombs. And they said, we're done. We're not going to do nothing else. We're standing down. And that's where President Trump got the strength Wednesday to say, they're standing down. We're not going to do nothing else, because he had gotten word from these diplomats. And then you got these protesters. They wasn't shouting death to America. They wasn't shouting death to Israel.
Right.
They were shouting death to the traitors and death to the liars, speaking of the mullahs. But you got the Democratic Party tonight. They don't think that's a good thing. They think that's a bad thing. Terrible thing for our country right now. But I'll just let you chime in on that, and we're going to get something more important. What you think about it, bro?
Well, I think the worst part of this is what people are really overlooking. A lot of this is the fact that this happened under the Obama administration. And what did the Obama administration do when the people rose up? They left them hanging.
Yes, they did.
And it made America look very bad. And here's the point. They know right now that God is going to set the people of Iran free, the spiritually oppressed people of the earth free. This is not the only country this is happening in. It's going to happen in other countries. It's already happening in France,
yes,
Hong Kong, Venezuela, now Iran. So God is setting these people free. But Obama had a chance to do this, left them hanging, and now they're back on the streets. They know President Trump will have their back, and they know that the American people will have their back. And if there's any Iranian people listening tonight, you know, we speak for a lot of Americans here, patriotic Americans, that we stand with you together to take your country back. We are with you. We are praying for you, and God is going to do miraculous things in that country. Stand firm and be strong.
Couldn't say it better, buddy, and I'm glad you said that, because I think that's where they're getting their strength from tonight. They've witnessed the patriotic movement. They've witnessed this movement in America, and they're saying, you know, we want that freedom. We talked about this last Monday night, Mark. It's all about the gospel. This is a region of the world that the gospel has never went fully into freely. There's probably an underground church in Iran, just like there's an underground church in North Korea. Probably one. We know there's one in China. They're persecuted every day over there. But those 3 nations, and I would say there's probably maybe 1 or 2 more, that this gospel has not been preached in fully. And look, that's a sign. It's a prophetic sign we're in the end. It's a prophetic sign that we're at least in a time of harvest, that the Lord is wanting to free these nations. And, you know, I was sharing this with my dad last night, and we were talking about the Middle East, and we were both in agreement that, you know, this whole terra firma, this whole landscape of the Middle East is about to change so dramatically that a year from now, when me and you're on Monday Night Spiritual Smackdown, there's no telling what we're going to be discussing, because I think everybody's sensing that, Mark. But I want to just say this, too, about our president, and I want to give him a good shout-out tonight. I thought it was genius, just absolutely genius, and a list of genius things that he tweeted out in Farsi, not just English, but in Farsi, a message to those mullahs. And he said, you shooting these protesters, we're watching, the world's watching, but especially us. And I want to say that he went as far as to say there's going to be war crime tribunals for those that are found to be shooting these protesters. And I mean, America's got their back, Mark, and you said it beautifully. Obama didn't. He didn't. He wanted those protesters killed because, not to be a little crude here tonight, but they were attacking his relatives. So, I mean, as only a Christian can say it, look, this is a whole different ball of wax right now. I'm praying for these people. We need to pray for those folks tonight. And again, like you said, if they're listening to us overnight in Iran, we love you guys, and we're praying for you deeply, deeply, deeply. I want to just say this before we get going tonight on the next subject. I want to say hello to Israel. We saw some people in YouTube already tonight from Israel. Welcome to the Monday Night Spiritual Smackdown. I know it's past midnight over there. We're just honored that you guys are up that late watching us two Southern boys chit-chat about stuff. We're honored to have you tonight. We saw New Zealand in the room, and we've got another worldwide audience. Mark, this other story is going to be a little bit more disturbing, and it's angered me, and I know it's angered you because we've talked about it, and it's unfortunately has found its way to my home state, not my home state, but where I live right now in Tennessee. I'm from Georgia, but our governor, Bill Lee, here, and he's been one of many governors that have succumbed to this pressure. The evangelical community, of all things, and that shouldn't shock us, they have been the ones pushing this settlement issue with the refugees. And I want to just read, if you'll let me just take a few paragraphs here, I want to just read this because this story came out on the 13th of December, so it's not that old. But it says a large group of evangelicals has called on their respective governors to agree to resettle refugees in their home state. The move comes after President Trump signed an executive order which required approval from state and local officials before refugees could be resettled. Now, these are illegals, folks. These are not people fleeing religious persecution. Make no mistake about this. These are illegal aliens. World Relief and the Evangelical Immigration Table, a combined...
Wait, what was that? What was that name again?
World Relief.
And what was the other one?
And the Evangelical Immigration Table.
Oh, my goodness. Who was that? Didn't we talk about that last week about George Soros?
Yes,
and all
we
these
did.
Guys? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. You can interrupt me anytime you like.
I just want to make sure that clarification is right. Go right ahead.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Shouldn't shock us here. But a combined group of evangelical organizations lobbying for extensive immigration reform. And folks, when you hear that mess, when you hear that pop cocky, that reform, that's not reform, folks. That's immigration invasion. That's an illegal immigration invasion here. Sent joint letters to 15 state governors this week, according to the Christian Post and other news outlets. The group demands center around the continued resettlement of refugees. Now, these stories never give you the word illegal in front of it. Let me just add that word of illegal refugees under the U.S. Refugees Admissions Program and in line with Trump's 26, that's a lie, it's not in line with his executive order, which permits states and localities the power to block refugee resettlement. 17 of the country's 50 governors have agreed to this resettlement plan. I'm not going to read much more of that, Mark, but I'm going to tell you what's happened. That pressure did not come from the Democratic Party. That pressure did not come from left-wing groups. That group that is pressuring these governors is the same evangelical elite group that we've been screaming about and getting hammered for it out there. I had a friend of mine I worked with her mother in years in an organization, and she was a little snotty to me this weekend, and she says, well, I guess you don't like Beth Moore because of her political persuasion, and she don't agree with your political beliefs. Let me tell you something. I got nothing personal with Beth Moore. My issue with Beth Moore is that she was supporting the impeachment of the President of the United States, folks, and then claiming out here that she's all for the country when she's backing a party that's for killing babies, transgenderism, LGBT rights, and let me tell you something else, illegal immigration. That's my problem, not personal. Mark, take on.
Yep. Okay, so World Relief and the Evangelical Immigration Table. Evangelical Immigration Table, we talked about a week or two ago where it was George Soros related. You had Russell Moore, the Southern Baptist Convention. All these guys were on this Evangelical Immigration Table. You know, There was a guy, we tried to find it before the show. We couldn't find it. Who was just on Tucker Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
He was literally on there. There was like a 1 minute, 2 minute segment. I was going to have it on here. And he was on there talking about, because they're called refugee contractors, these churches. He was specifically addressing the evangelicals, because exactly what this is saying, because they want to bring these people in here under these sanctuary churches, under sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, whatever it is. And here's the astounding part that he let out. Unbelievable, mind-blowing. And in this article, it goes on to talk about they make their why they wanted to do this. But it never mentions the truth. Okay, this article doesn't. These evangelicals don't mention the truth. He slipped out and said they're getting $2,100 a person for these refugee contractors, and the churches can keep 40% of it.
That's right.
You know how much money that is?
It's a lot of money, Mark.
This is nothing about being biblical. This is not about being a Christian and being a hand. This is about the money, folks. This is what this stuff is all about. This is what the church system is all about. It's all about the money, the wealth, and the influence. The deep state church. That's what